Okay, so I have received some questions, right? Probably now not the best hour to have a live, but I'm gonna do it anyway, right? Saturday, no, Sunday more afternoon. So I got some question from uh, from viewers, as people that sign up in my Patreon, my Instagram, and now YouTube about how to draw quick sketches of figures in dynamic poses, like you would see in this drawing of the Renaissance master. Right, this is a drawing by Pontormo, a Mannerist of the mid 1500. And this is a study, a quick sketch, a quick study that beautifully captures the dynamism, the power, the intensity of these three figures in movement. As you can see, there is a lot of tentative marks in here, right? You see how first you block in just quite a few thin sketches, right? Look at this very simple forearm rendered like a truncated cone, right? And then also notice how there is this beautiful fluidity, continuity between the various parts of the body, right? So this, right? Beautifully connected and rendered, right? So this is another example of also a Luca Cambiaso drawing, a quick sketch, a quick study, which I really particularly love. And it's, you see, it's very, essential in terms of line, right? I particularly like this because this one here deals with foreshortening and overlapping of the volume. See that? So I'm going to have here the head overlapping the rib cage that overlaps the pelvis, right? And this arm goes across rib cage and pelvis, right, in front of the leg too. So very beautifully done. If you look at these forming here, they're very essential, very simple. You see a cylinder here, right? A truncated cone here, another truncated cone here, right? And a sphere. See, they really see the line here, like that. So from this, right, to this, there are quite a lot of affinity. What is the starting point of this method of working? Well, it is the Florentine structure system, and the Florentine structure system these are sketches I did, right, to exemplify that. It's based on focusing on the structure of the figure first, right? This and this, you can see, looking at all these volumes separately, right? And then knowing how they relate to each other proportionally, right? How big is the head in relation to the rib cage, etc., so that we can create a scaffolding, right? A figure like this that is properly related proportionally throughout its form, right? So the head is going to be the correct size in relation to the rib cage, in relation to the pelvis, in relation to the feet, everything else, right? So now this is another example of that, right? Another example of that where we have the figure in a more dynamic pose, right? More dynamic pose, still rendered initially as basic blocks, very basic volumes, which eventually they can be rendered more organically. This is a development from that. See that? It's development from that, like that, right? So this has the same initial structural organization, proportional organization. But then in here, see this, the rib cage, right? The very faint line, the section of the leg here. But then over here, I blocked in a more realistic details, right? So how do we start this, right? How do we start this, right? See how more example of this, right? Example like this, right? Etc. So let me show you a sequence of drawing that show the progression of the this Florentine structural system. So we start with this working here, right? Blocking in the figure structurally. The advantage of this is that we can create something that is viable, this is strong, right? All the parts look like they are connected properly, right? And also we can measure them, right? Also we can measure them. So with this, we capture the pose very quickly, understanding how all the various parts line up with each other. And we know that this is going to be properly related to this in terms of size, etc., etc. Once this is done, this structure is done, we can put this muscle over it, right? So I took a piece of tracing paper and then I drew the muscle over it, right? So studying the muscle will give me access to the volume, right? The sense of the volume, the value of form, the value of volumes of the muscle will be positioned properly, and I start feeling how they flow from one to the next, right? Creating some sort of harmonies, right? And then from here, we move on to this, which is a line draw. This is not finished on purpose, right? So this is the initial blocking in, right, of the figure. Very, very faint. You don't need to draw much more than this, in the sense that as long as you see it, it's going to be sufficient. Then on top of it, following, this is the initial drawing, right? Following this initial drawing, you can go over it and refine it, refine the initial drawing with a more precise set of lines that focus on the description of the main muscular groups, where they are, etc. So this, of course, will be informed by this study that we've done before, right? From here, once the line drawing is finished, then you can move on to the tonal rendering of the figure. And I start by blocking light mask and shadow mask, right? And develop then, this is also not finished, right? Just to show the little bit of a progression. And from here, develop the figure further, the tonal range, that is, further by blocking 4 values, 6 values, etc., etc., right? So this is basically the Florentine structural system. So how does it work, right? How does it work? Let's block in, I'm going to do a quick demo, right? Let's block in now the volumes of the body in a straight figure. And then we're going to move it, right? We're going to try to start moving these figures around. So we can start by drawing a straight line and then divide it in a segment, right? So divide this in half, eyeballing it, and then I check. You can draw with me or just look at it and then maybe draw it later, watch it again. Divide this in half and in half. Let's see if these are right. 1, 2, 3, 4. They look good. Now divide in half, divide in half, divide in half and in half. Now I have 8 segments. Cut off the last half of the last segment. And then I have now 7.5 segments, meaning each one of these segments represent the measure of one head, right? And through the measure of the head, I will be able to establish this proportional relationship, right? So meaning how big are all these other segments in relation to the head. So the rib cage will occupy 2 spaces, right? And not completely though. I'm blocking the rib cage from here to here, right? And I block it in like this, leaving some space for, actually I'm gonna draw these as, yeah, let's draw it as eggs, right? Like that. This is the base of the neck, right? That's the neck, right? So here on the 4th blocks, I have the pelvis. I'm gonna draw the pelvis as a bucket, like this, right? And I want to divide this pelvis, right, in 4 equal segments horizontally, half, 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 and then now here I find the pubic bone. The pubic bone is really important to remember because that's the midpoint, right? That's the midpoint of the figure, and now I block in the iliac spines, one here and one here, right? The iliac spine will tell me as the pelvis tilts how as the pelvis tilts, the iliac spine is going to change alignment, right? Now from here, I block in the leg, right? The leg starts halfway between the iliac spine and the pubic bone, about here, and it goes down here to 1.5 heads below the base of the pelvis. So now here is the thigh, right? And then from here to the knee joint, I go down to the last half, and I take about 1/3 of a head here for the feet. And now from here to here, I block in the lower leg, right? So clavicles, right? And then we have here the head or the humerus. The arm, the upper arm, arrives about at the level of the base of the pelvis, of the rib cage, and then here the forearm like that, right? So this is the hand, right? So now we have this puppet, right? And let's see if we can get we can give life to this puppet here like this, right? So instead of having a straight figure like this, actually we could draw first a straight figure quickly, and then we're gonna draw maybe a sitting figure, right? So now notice that from here to here, in the typical proportion, we have 4 heads. So I know that I want to start with this, the axial skeleton, right? I block in now one head like this, right? This is just totally arbitrary. Then without really measuring, right, at this point, I want to block in the rib cage like this, and then here the pelvis like this, right? See that? Like this. So now, from this is the, I also want to draw the center of the head, and then the center of the rib cage, the center of the pelvis. So I start giving an idea of how the head and the rib cage are oriented, and also the sense of volume. See that? Like this, right? So now, this is the neck. And now I want to see if this is 4 heads, right? The head looks a little bit big, right? But let's measure it. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, the head's a little bit too big, right? So I'm going to make it a little bit smaller here. And now I have a better idea of a better, a more accurate representation of the proportion. So now, remember, this is the midpoint right here at the lower quarter of the pelvis. So this is the pelvis drawn as a drum, right? It could be like a marshmallow, right? This is an egg, right? You can use very, very basic shapes, right? So the lower quarter is about here, right? So now, if that's a midpoint, what I can do to draw the legs, take this measurement here, bring it down here, right? And now we have the length of the legs without really thinking too much, right? But now they're going to be proportioned properly in relation to each other. Now I can block in the leg here, like this, right? Just show the direction without really getting lost in the anatomical detail. We just need to know the pose, right? The detail of the structure, the structural aspect of the figure, right? So Arnold is asking, what is the ideal sequence for character design? Concept, anatomy, or something else? Well, they are not really to be considered in a prioritized way like this. They are all very important, right? But they happen at different times, right? So when you do a character, you have to have an idea of what is the character for, right? Is it a bad guy? Is it a good guy for a graphic novel? If for whatever that is, right? And then based on that, you might want to start drawing it, right? So I would say first you need to know what is it for, right? Then the concept, right? The anatomy is something that equally important, but comes later, right? Comes later, and that's how you will eventually visualize it, right? But the way you visualize it has to be, considered in terms of what is this for, right? So I hope that kind of helps, right? They're different. The parts are equally important, because if you have a good concept but a bad drawing because the anatomy is good, then it's no good. So now here, when we block in the leg, more or less, right, the midpoint here, the leg, is halfway between here, the root of the leg, and here, the foot. So here is halfway between the iliac spine and pubic bone, here like this, right? That's the top, the root of the leg. So now here, I'm gonna have this eyeball the middle, right? And so this is going to be the thigh, right, like that. And I can draw the thigh as some sort of cylindrical volume, truncated cylinder, right? And here I have now the lower leg, which initially I can block in as a truncated cone. Then I can add a volume like this for the calves, and then the patella like this, right? And then the foot out like that, right? See how quickly we can put together a form that kind of recalls the organic. It's not organic yet, but recalls the organic. The proportions are correct, so it's not going to look like it's deformed or anything, right? The main volumes are positioned where they need to be, and there's sufficient to tell us, okay, that's a leg, or that's a that's a strong leg or a weak leg and whatnot, right? So now with this leg in here, similar, right? Do this halfway, then we block in this going down like this, and then maybe this could be just like, if I don't like it like that, so I'm gonna make it straight, right? See how we can quickly change our mind, right, about these poses, right? And then now we're gonna have here, that's the clavicles, right? That's the clavicles, and when the arms down along the body like this, the humerus is going to be below the clavicle and below the level of the jugular fossa like this, right? But if I lift an arm like this, right, like that, this is going to be higher. That's the head of the humerus, and it's going to be kind of at the level of the mouth, the level of the chin, etc. So I have now one arm lifted, right, considering the joint, right? And then maybe this arm is down like this, right? How long is the upper arm? It's the same size, more or less, as the same length as the length of the rib cage from the front, right? Here, like this. So the rib cage starts here, though, right? But the arm starts a little bit lower, start to the front in here. Therefore, very often, this could be brought down a little bit lower because the arms start a little bit lower than the top of the rib cage, but more or less, right? This is the size of the upper arm, and the forearm is going to be here like this, right? Like this. How long is this? A little bit shorter than that, right? A little bit shorter than that. So there you go, right? Hand, this, right? And now I have the upper arm like this, and this our figure blocked in very, very quickly as an idea, at first idea of what do I want to do, where do I want to put things, right? And I'm still thinking about it. I'm thinking about how to resolve, add more detail to all of this, right? There it is. And what we do now, so you start seeing how the dynamism of these, right, it was the priority, right, in there. So this is the dynamism that we blocked in, right? And then now you can see, right, you see those initial lines. Look at the foot as a wedge, see that? And see that another triangle, that then he lifted it, right? And then you see how he changed his mind about this leg in here. First it was here, then it's here, and so on, right? So this is really, see this volume here, very similar to this volume here, right? Like that, right? So as you can see, these drawings of the masters, they are really kind of dynamic, very dynamic in the sense also of the way they are created, right? So meaning they put down a mark, see if they like it. If they don't like it, they change it, right? Now this is the scaffolding, right? I'm gonna keep it, I'm gonna soften it up without really making it, taking off too much so you can see. But at this point, we don't need this much detail here, right? And what we can do now, we just clean it up a little bit, and now we can go over it, blocking in the muscles, right? The big volume of the muscular fold. So now here I have from behind the jaw and under the ear here, and going toward the jugular fossa or the pit of the neck, I can block in the sternocleidomastoid, and here, that's the sternocleidomastoid. From here in the back, I had the trapezius going down like this, right? Like that, right? This is now the thyroid cartilage and the other sternocleidomastoid, and this is now the clavicle, which is a little bit more moving, right? So I'm making this out of my head, so you know, just to show you how you could imagine something and visualize it, right? But you could also use a model and use the same approach. So now here's the deltoid. The deltoid will go on the side of the arm, the side seen from the front. It's going to be down here. And then start from here, goes down like this, and then down like that. So break these down in angles, right? 1, 2, 3. And it goes up to here, right? Covers the head of the humerus here. See, that having the head of the humerus helps because we can now see how much of the deltoid we had to draw, right? So here now we have another line, which is the pectoralis. The pectoralis goes here under the deltoid. From here, it goes down like this, right? And then from here goes down like up like that, and this is the pectoralis. Oops. And this is the pectoralis like this, right? Like that. So now here we have the serratus, the latissimus dorsi, the rib cage, and here I have now the external oblique, which is squeezed. See that? Because this is now kind of flex in like this. So this is going to be compressed here. And this is now the sternal oblique connecting with the iliac crest. Here I have the gluteus medius, right? And here's the, maybe I'm going to turn this a little bit more, moving this iliac spine here and this on the margin, right? So now this is gluteus medius, and here we're going to block in the leg later. Now let's go over on the other side. I like to draw, you know, first this volume here and then this volume here on both sides, so I maintain the structural coherence between the two parts, right? Now here I would have the rib cage coming down like this, right? And then down here, you see how this is compressed, and this is compressed against that. So this is kind of squeezed in between the rib cage and the iliac crest. Here, go down like this, and then this is more like distended because the space between here and here now is increased, right? Now from here, from the bottom of the costal arch here, like this, right? I draw a line here, here, and here. So Frank is asking me a question about what the new book, that the third book contains that the other two don't contain. So when I'm done with this, Frank, I want to show you quickly the other book. I have a preview copy. Kind of show the other book, but the third book, which is not out yet. But the new book is basically a book of exercises. I'm going to show you how to do the exercises, right? It's shorter than the other books, right? But it has specific exercises that will guide you through this process of piling up layers, right? Starting from the skeletal or stereometric, skeletal, muscle, external form, tonal rendering, as I demonstrated you with this sequence like this. So now here we have the deltoid here, and then the pectoralis comes down like this, right? And the bicep goes under the deltoid, which is now wrapped around the bicep like this, right? Like that, right? And then, of course, you had the tricep, and we had the scapula, and the serratus and latissimus here like this, right? Makes sense? So that's how you would block in the forms, the organic form over the scaffolding. So I want to show you one more thing, and then we do the foreshortened figure, right? Quickly, and then I'm going to show you the sketchbook, right? The sketchbook that I have been putting together these years, right? So now this is the thigh. I'm going to take the sartorius. The sartorius starts from the anterior superior iliac spine and goes down here to the posterior half of the knee, right? From here like this, cuts diagonally through the thigh. And now this is going to be the adductor group. And this is the quadricep group, right? So from here, the sartorius moves forward under the knee and continues, stops in here, that's the tendon. And from here I have the shin, right? The shin like this. I think we already discussed this in a previous live session, but this connection, the flow between the sartorius and the tibia creates what is called the Cupid's bow, right? Cupid's bow. So now here I have the calves, soleus, and then the tendinous angle here. And here I have the rectus femoris and the vastus medialis. This is the patella. So we see how quickly, without really thinking too much, because this is just to demonstrate how the system works, right? We start from this scaffolding, right? And then we coat it with muscles, right? In terms of a foreshortened figure, right? How do I do it? All right, so let's see. We start with here that could be maybe now like this, right? Start with the head. In this case, start with the head, right? And then maybe I'm blocking now the rib cage here like this, right? And then the pelvis like this, and this figure is going to be seated, right? Seating. So now maybe the head moves forward a little bit. I just need you to visualize these forms as blob like this. They don't have to be very defined, right? And then find also the center to see how you can maintain this level of continuity, right? Or you could also do this, for example. I can have this figure here and now looking to the left, right? The sternum shows that the rib cage now is a little bit turned from this to this, and this in central is turned now this way. So I have this looking this way, this looking this way, and this looking that way. Makes sense? So it creates a beautiful torsion, right, between the various parts, and I am planning them now. I am planning these as I draw the scaffolding, right? So now we need to see if the proportion of these three segments are properly blocked in, and because this is still, it's not the standing figure, it's going to be sitting, but this is still straight, so I can still see more or less if these volumes look good in relation to each other. So we should have 4 heads, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, so it's not 4 heads. I could make the head a little bit smaller, right? But consider that these are slightly bent, so it doesn't have to be exact, right? If you do this, copying it from live, you're going to measure exactly how many heads fit into this pose here. Could be 4, could be 3 1/4, 3 1/2, etc. If you want to do some character design, right, then you could stretch the proportion of this figure. So, for example, you could say my character has way longer legs, right? So instead of having these two in similar size, you can make the legs longer up to here, right? Or whatever you want to do. Make sense? So you could make the rib cage and also bigger than the leg. They're going to be short. So you can alter the proportion and maintain consistency of the appearances of your character, and that, because as you know, that is a very important aspect in character design. Eh? So now we have this so the head is smaller, so this looks good, right? Also, I block it in like this. This is the bucket or the pelvis, right? That's the rib cage. Now I can do is remember, pubic bone is here, right? Actually, I'm going to turn the pelvis a little bit more. I don't want it too front here like this, right? Like that, right? Pubic bone is the lower quarter of the pelvis. Iliac spine is the upper segment here, right? At the upper quarter here. So now here I have the iliac spine slightly turned, right? The pelvis slightly turned, meaning this is going to be smaller, this is going to be bigger. This is going to be more away from the profile, and this is going to be on the profile of the figure. Now here, halfway between the iliac spine and the pubic bone, I can block in the root of the leg. It could be a little bit more, could be higher, but more or less, that's where the leg is going to stem from. So this is going to be my leg now, right here and here like that, right? So could be like that, it could be shorter, could be lower, like this. This is leg instead is going to be foreshortened, right here. And I draw now this and the section of this. So now this is really facing me, see that? Facing me, because I see the section here, right? So that makes it easier to visualize as a volume. I don't want to draw shapes in here. These are all forms, right? All 3-dimensional, right? Now from here, blocking the leg going down that way, right? And this leg in here maybe goes that way, like that, right? So again, I could decide to try different poses here, like this, but I kind of like this, or this would go here, like that, right? So it could be like that, right? Look how quickly you can change the appearance of the pose, like this, right? With more, let's say, more stable or kind of leaning back a little bit, but this instead will give me a pose that where the figure is kind of projected that way, right? Just by changing the leg, right? Now here we would have the clavicles, the humerus here like this, right? And then down down like this, right? Arm like this and down like that, right? So forearm, and then I'm going to answer your question quickly, right? And this goes down like that, right? Like that. So see how quickly we can block in a figure that is not necessarily on the standing pose like that. It can become more and more dynamic, right? So let's see. The oblique connects with the to the iliac crest. Yes, the sternal oblique. So let me show you now here, right? So this is the pelvis, right? The top of the pelvis had the iliac crest like this. I kind draw it as a bucket, right? The iliac crest will not do this complete turn around the pelvis because it stops here and here, right? But we don't care. We don't see the back, right? So now here I have the iliac spine, right? The iliac spine is at the end of the iliac crest here and here. This is now is the inguinal ligament. It's the end of the belly, right? Now, this is the costal arch, right? We can draw a little bit more details now, like this, right? So now here, right, here like this, right? The rectus, just blocking the rectus abdominis, right? The abs. The rectus abdominis will start from the bottom of the sternum, will go down like this, right? And then over like this down to the pubic bone. The navel is about here, more or less at the level of the top of the pelvis. See that here, right? Now from here, right, from here, I have the actual, sorry, rectus abdominis. Rectus abdominis will start a little bit higher than the costal arch. It doesn't start from here, start from here, like that, right? And it goes down like this now, right? Like this and like this. And this is going to be now the segments that connect anteriorly the two parts of the rib cage and the pelvis. On the side, the sternal oblique will go, start from here, right? Start from next to the rectus abdominis, goes down like this, right? Goes down like this, goes slightly below the level of the iliac spine, and then from here it goes up to the iliac crest like that. So now we keep going here like this, right? This will eventually move posteriorly, right? Now we are on the margin of the rib cage, and from here down like this, right? When I don't have any more rib cage to follow, the external oblique needs to jump and gonna go down like that, right? Now you see how this part in here, right? So the rib cage and the pelvis are slightly turned that way. Therefore, this part in here is going to be bigger, and this part in here, look, it's going to be smaller. See that? So if you draw your structural aspect correctly, right, considering again how these segments are oriented in relation to each other, as you put the muscle on top, the muscle will be positioned correctly. In fact, this will help you. The structural aspect will help you to position the muscle correctly, right? So now here, from here, we have now the pectoralis, right here like this, right? Pecs here, and then the pectoralis, you want to stop short of the head of the humerus here, right, like that. From here, you go down that way. You do this. You do a fish, right? And then here is going to be the deltoid, like that. The pectoralis goes under the deltoid, and this, instead of having a straight line, we're going to make it curved, like that, right? We can intervene on that. And then here we're going to have all the various segments of the pectoralis, right? Can obtain by creating a radiating pattern here, all converging to under the deltoid. And from under the pectoralis, I have the bicep, like this, right? So see how these volumes here have the brachialis, and this is the tricep. We see how all these volumes here, right, are overlapping each other. In any case, they are kind of interacting, physically each other. They are kind of coming over it, above it, next to it, etc. This is that space that we have between the deltoid and pectoralis, and here is now the arc pectoralis. So under here, we would have add to the profile of the rib cage. So rib cage go this way, but as we add the muscle, we are going to change the profile of the rib cage. That's going to open up like this. Here, right, at the line where I have the upper margin of the external oblique, I have a line, a curved line. This curved line, it helps you. So you're going to find this curved line easily once you have the nipple like this, right? From the nipple, go down with a curved line like that. So here like this, right? And go down like that. See that? That is the serratus. This is going to block the serratus. So the serratus now, you're going to give me this digitation, right? And as the posterior, the margin here is going to be the latissimus dorsi, the lats, right? Like that. So now you can imagine how, because this form comes in like this, goes out, this is going to be dark, right? Because there's light, right? It's going to be dark. Light, dark again, like that, right? So you see now how we can really build up the figure like this by adding volume properly, right? Muscle properly. And if we like, if we're going to do this for to create a character design, then we can do this from imagination, but we can also use a model, right? Can also use a model, ask the model to pose the way we have been thinking the pose, and then refine the detail. But this initial structural aspect can be obtained very efficiently, right? By blocking in the big volume, the big form, in a, using our imagination, and then refining them later, right? So this is more like a study, right? So let me see if we have other questions. Grant, drawing the skeleton over. Yes, that is a good exercise, right? Drawing the skeleton over reference photos. I'm going to show you some images now, right? And then the Russian classic style drawing emphasizes the importance of anatomy, but isn't that what the Italian and French school do so as well? Yeah, in fact, that's a good point. In fact, this method in here originated during the Renaissance, so about 600 years ago, and the Russian eventually developed that quite recently, right? But yeah, they are based on that, and the French also, but not as they took also eventually a different direction. They also 1800 etc. They started working more on imitation rather than the structural development of the figure. So two different developments, right? So, but this method originates in Florence in mid 1400s, right? So, see, this is another example, a certain figure like that, right? I wanted to show you now because there are a few questions that could be answered by looking at this, right? So this is the new book, the third book, and it's not out yet. It's going to be out in December, but the new book is based on it's all exercises, right? It's all exercises, and I have various levels, right, with which we analyze the human body, right? So stereometry, first chapter. I dedicate a whole chapter to stereometry because a lot of these stereometric renderings that I see around, right, some are very well done, see online in books, etc. But most are done in an intuitive way. And there's nothing wrong with that, but if you are the artist that has developed your own way of doing the stereometry, starting from the correct one, it's fine. But if you want to learn, right, as a student, and you are learning for a visualization, stereometric visualization that already has been interpreted and altered, then you don't learn the concept. You imitate somebody else's interpretation. So you want to understand what the true parameters, right, of the stereometry, and then decide what you want to do with that. For instance, so in here, I just gave you the measurement of the typical stereometry, and from here, you then decide how to develop it, right? You see how in this case in here, I have what I showed you earlier on, all this movement. You can, once you understand where the joints are, you can move the legs up and down, you can turn the head, you can add the muscle, and this is the goose foot, right? Sorry, the Cupid's bow. So these are the exercises that are in the book. This is the first exercise, right? The first exercise, what you do, you take a piece of tracing paper and you put it here, right? And in here, you redraw that, right, or that here, following the numbers, following the direction in here, and why tracing paper? Because you can draw it here, but then you draw it 2 times and you're done. This way, instead, you can draw it 2, 3, 4, 5 times, right? And maybe keep all your tries and see how you developed, how you improve your drawing like that. So this is a basic, the basic stereometry, right? And the one that originated in the Renaissance. And this is a more modern, is my interpretation, right? Then we have male front view, female front view. You can see the difference between the rib cage and the pelvis, right? Side view, male and female, back view, male and female, etc., etc. From here, then we move to more moving this puppet, right? Exercise how to move these puppets, right? And give them life, right? More and more complex, right? More and more complex figure. So you learn with the initial exercises, you learn the proportion the way they are. And by doing the exercises, so you don't have to read a lot, see how much text you have, right? You just copy what you see, reason what you see, learn as you draw, right? Then from there, eventually, we move to giving life to these two figures, right? Making them carrier of concept and content and narrative and whatnot, right? So, see that, right? Like this. And more and more complex, right? More and more complex. So the complexity increases as we proceed in the book, right? So this is eventually an example of dynamic poses. These are poses that I did not make up. I took some, and this is I started to answer to Grant, right? To Grant, right? So also the book is also multimedia, right? So I have a set of videos that come with the book. There's a link in the book. I think it's in the beginning, right? Should be a link in the book, right? And here, there's a link in the book, right? And then you connect with this link in here, and you're gonna have a list of videos that you can follow. So for example, I just finished this first video here, like this. It's already ready, not available yet, but it's ready. Actually, I have 2 or 3 videos. You can follow also the video. So with the video, I'll help you to show you how to do it, right? So now we have more dynamic poses, but these poses, right, Grant, are created copying photographs. So yeah, you can use the photographs to extrapolate the skeleton, but also to extrapolate something like this, right? Some basic volume like that. So these are all figures in movement, see that? All taken from photographic reference, which I transformed in stereometric, around the stereometric forms. Once you master this, then you can do it from imagination, right? These are all studies of sculpture and painting. This, see that, shows eventually how you can move from the stereometric rendering to the realistic figure, right? You can draw this very, very faintly and on top of this are adding information, detail to make it more realistic, pretty much like we're done in here, right? So then from here, right, and of course I have plenty of examples, right, how to go from here to here, right, etc. Other sketches you can use to practice and copy, etc. Then we move on to See, this one shows a little bit that torsion I was mentioning before, right? We can turn the head this way, the rib cage this way, the pelvis this way, the leg that way. So we have this kind of turning of the form, right? So now, this is, okay, identifying the skeletal and muscular structure. So this is, in detail, the answer, how to put the skeleton in here, right? All right, so we need landmarks. These exercises are for finding out the landmarks, right? And see how they relate to the superficial muscle, right? Same thing, an exercise to be done in here. I'm preparing a video for this, so you also see a video for this, right? And see that you put the tracing paper here, you block it in with a rubber band, and then, or you tape it, up to you, and then you draw the exercise here, right? So now, this, I'm not gonna look at all of this, but in this case in here, the exercise is just for that. It's just to show how do I find the skeleton, right? They're going to be bumps in here, right? Lines in there, all these things in here, right, will tell you about the skeleton. So you find those dots, which you have been studying here, right? You have been studying in detail here, and then recreate the skeleton, and then recreate the figure. You can draw this in there, right? And for example, let me see. You see how we start seeing all the joints in here, right? You start seeing a little bit of the landmarks here, the spine, the scapula, right? And in this part in here, also blocking a little bit more of the skeleton, right? So, or this, right? So this part in here, skeleton, muscle top, right? Now, this is another way to analyze, find out the skeleton, extrapolate the skeleton from this image. This is the reference image. From here, you start looking at all these bumps, etc., and then reconstruct the skeleton. Then put the muscle on top. Same thing here. Like you find out all the landmarks, etc., and then you block them in. This is a study of the dynamism, right? And this is what you were mentioning before, how drawing the skeleton inside a figure. Yes, that's also a very good exercise. This is the reverse, right? So we can start from the skeleton and then develop the figure three-dimensionally. Or we can start from a figure, find the landmarks, and draw the skeleton over that, right? This is another example, right? Skeleton inside the figure, right? Muscle over the figure, skeleton extrapolated. And here, again, how do I find the landmarks, create the skeleton, then build up the figure? So I have quite a few of these exercises for that, because this is really is one of my favorite sculptures in Rome, the boxer, right? And do the same thing also in that, right? Now, then eventually we go to analyze human figure, right? Same thing, right? Male and female, front, back, right? And in this case, I also put the direction of the muscle, right? So, and then eventually we go to measuring techniques and drawing techniques, right? Drawing techniques, some basic drawing technique. This is the classical method. This is the Cadmus method, based more on the Renaissance style. And then this progression from line draw for the boxes, like I showed you earlier on, to line drawing, to more refined line drawing, and then tonal development, right? So same thing in here, but starting from the middle, starting from the mid-tone, and then developing highlight and shadow mask, and then reduction technique, right? So here use a close for aesthetic purposes. So yes, you can do that. You can take a figure and then block in the skeleton. inside that, right? So let me see if there's other questions. So is anatomy for figure invention in drawing. See, if you, I think I already answered. If you look at the video, you're gonna I discuss about this quite a lot, right? So if you want to know more because there's quite a lot to study here, right? You can follow me on Patreon. Right? I have a lot of videos in there that you might find useful. There's a whole course on stereometry, and it's like I guess 15, 20 videos, right? So you're gonna get in detail in stereometry. So I want to show you some of my sketchbooks, right? So when I do, these are drawing that I do, quick sketches I do in before the pose starts or as the model start posing to study the pose. So then when I start going around looking at the students' work, I know pretty much what the pose is about, etc. Right? So as you can see, having a sketchbook, right, for you to have always ready, right, in the house that you dedicate only to anatomy, figure drawing, is always a great thing because you end up with a collection of interesting artwork that can be very, very useful, stimulating, but also you kind of you want to go back and draw, add more, and more. It really visualizes your progress also, right? So this, I like this box in here. This is Fabriano Quadrato, and it has, let me show you, another one is more visible. What is it? It has different types of paper. See that? Different colors here like this, right? And you can use it with charcoal, with chalk, and I also use it for some washes. So these are copies from Guercino, an Italian painter, Baroque painter, and I like the way the expressive quality of the mark of the Guercino, and I drew first the way I show you earlier on with the very, very faint line. See that line there, right? And then I went over it with washes of walnut egg, and then a nib. And so this is another one, Stadio Guercino, same thing, right? So they are very useful, these books. This is in size, I think it's 9x9. Yeah, 9x9, but they come also a little bit smaller, or they come also long like this, but overall it's really good quality paper, right? Quality paper. Another one that, then we go back to this, right? I want to show you is, this is moleskin, right? Moleskin. The paper of this is quite good, right? And in this sketchbook, I really drew also the drawing that are, a lot of these drawings are in the second book, right? And the quality of this paper is really, really nice. So this is kind of very smooth that you can see, right? So you can achieve very good level of detail as you work on this paper here, right? So in this case, some of these drawings made it into the book, some they didn't. They were kind of study, trying to figure out where things are. How do I visualize the back, right? So this one didn't make it in, but it was equally important. It simply didn't have the room for this, right? But this, yes, this made it in the book, right? This is always going back to the question, skeleton in the figure. You can do that, right? You can do both ways, right? This is the drawing I started from, right? This is the original drawing from life. This is Heather. Foreshortening, right? Foreshortened figure. Once I'm done with this, then what I did, I put tracing paper over it, right? And then I figure out, all right, where is the volume of the leg? Where is the arm? Where is this? Where is that? Right? But you can do the opposite also. You can do start from this, very, very light, right, as a structural scaffolding, and then over it, you're gonna draw this figure here, right? But this is the sketchbook, which is, it became more than a sketchbook in the end, right? These are two life drawings, right? See that I did of the models. And then from here, I blocked in this I did later, right? And I figure out where the muscles are. So let me show you, right? See more. So details, right, of the skeleton, etc. So all these lines of flow and dynamism. Okay, these are, see how I blocked in the muscle around that connect rib cage and pelvis. On the side, we have the external oblique, right? Going back to Grant, what you're asking about the connection between where is the external oblique ending? Iliac crest, right? Like that. So these are on the side, erectus dominus in the front, erector spinae in the back, right? So I have this kind of group of muscle, right, that pull different ways, right? And you see now the torsion here, the flexion, etc. This is the side view, etc. So kind of visualizing the anatomy in a more dynamic way, not just necessarily on a flat table that shows where things are, but also what they do, how they present themselves from different points of view. As you can see, this is also very important to understand, as we have seen in a drawing that I did early on, because then I can see how distortion changes the shape of the muscle, right? Like that. So, planes, right? Different movement, right? You can see different movement, and then different sketches that I then render as basic volumes, right? And then landmarks and geometries that the alignment of these landmarks can create, right? The direction of a muscle, direction of the ribs, direction of the whatnot, right? See that? And then landmarks that can permit me to find the skeleton, right? Trochanter, iliac spine, iliac crest, pubic bone, and reconstruct the skeleton or recreate this as basic volumes, right? So here we have, well, this is the lighten form, and then this is kind of the proportional relationship between the parts, right? So you see how the forearm is shorter than the upper arm, because the upper arm is here, and the hand is shorter than the forearm, and the fingers are more or less getting down to here in the hand, right? And so on, right? So these are all done from life, and then eventually I added these things later on as they got printed, right? So this is analysis of the muscle of the legs, the female, and see what happens. Like, why do I have this bulging here? Well, that's the adductors right here. What is that sharp line there? That's the tendon, right? Etc. Etc. So, trying to understand the external form much better through the study of the superficial muscle in anatomy, right? These are how the arms turn, don't turn. This is all in the book, right? This is the detail of elbows, etc. And these are studies I did of the volume of the legs. Then all these lines of radiation that are created by the contiguous muscle, so deltoid, upper part of the pectoralis, central part of the pectoralis, lower part of the pectoralis, serratus and latissimus dorsi, rib cage, external oblique, gluteus, and so on and so on. Right? They create this radiating pattern. See that? See this flow here, right? And this is Daro model that we had at the academy. Detail of the anatomy of female genitalia and the muscle around, and then superficial muscle of the figure, right? How to draw the breasts, how to position them, for example. So all these things are things that you want to practice doing, right? Keeping in the book, right? It's always a great idea to follow your progress through these studies, right? That you do. So this is just to tell you, these are quick sketches. See that doing a lot of these is really important. Do a lot of these, and you don't have to show them anybody. Just keep them in your book. You do all the tries that you want to do, but do as many as you can and fill up books of these. Right, have pile of sketchbooks like this. Right? So these are very quick poses. See that? Because these poses were quick, for like 3 minutes, 5 minutes. So you cannot really indulge in stay there blocking in the pose in great detail. So you're just blocking the essential aspect of it. But if you know this proportion, right, how this proportion relate to each other, how long is this compared to this, etc., instinctively, you don't have to measure them. You eventually will know, your hand will be informed when to stop, when to move, how long should this be, etc., etc. Right? So, and then that's why you capture this interesting dynamism, meaning if you want to prepare the initial drawing for a graphic novel, for example, you could fill a page with stuff like this, blocking the characters like this, doing these things, right, following the text or whatnot, and then see how the narrative develops. It's going to take you a minute to do this once you know how to do it, and you block in on a figure, and in probably half an hour you have the whole page with all the thing that is now planned, and now you can go back and you can refine things, right? So see that, see, all very, very quick, right? Very, very quick, very, very almost abstract, right? These interesting poses, old yoga poses. In fact, I have some yoga poses I want to show you. I love this pose that she had. It was just so incredibly expressive, so I just blocked that in like that, right? And so on, right? And so on. So then, quickly, I want to show you one more thing. And these are drawing that I cut off from my my sketchbook, right? Just to see other possible visualization. But let me see, there's more questions, right? Arnaldo Keller, yes, I have drawing classes coming up. So if you go on my website, robertoosti.com, I teach online both synchronously and asynchronously. You can also purchase the courses that already ran and get the recording, right, for a year and so. And or you can go on Patreon and look at what I have there and see if you like it. But I do teach courses on my new Renaissance atelier. You will find it in if you follow me on Patreon, right? If you follow me on Instagram, I have the address there, right? So this is a quick sketch of a male model, right? And I took a little bit of an ink, color ink, blocked it in a few washes like that. You can see the paper, it kind of buckles a little bit. So this paper here from this book is really not made for washes, but if it's a sketch, what do you care? It still, you're gonna try stuff on this, right? And if I iron it, you're gonna get flat, right? These are other sketches I did in class, right? Of studying the model, right? See this type of foreshortening, and see how this leg started like a truncated cone, right? Like that, more or less, kind of. And I moved the leg from here to see the leg, right? The leg was here first, and then I moved it here. But that line is so thin, right, that you almost don't notice it. I mean, I can block it here. Initially, it looks good. When I define this figure here, I say, okay, you know what? It should be a little bit more to the right, and I move it there. Same thing for everything else. See the hand, how quickly it blocked, right? I didn't finish the hand, right? But this one here, same thing. See how very, very summarily these are rendered, right? This instead was it was a petite model, right? And I'm gonna show you with this with another drawing to show you the proportional relationship. So in this case, you see that there is also some white there, right? Some white with chalk. So you can also use white in this type of paper and extend the tonal range, right? Quick quick poses, really beautiful. See how this dynamism, right? 1 and 2, right? Beautiful. 1, 2, right? And then this goes across like that. From here, it goes down like that. The sinuosity of the pose, right? Down like that, right? You can kind of you see the original line, right? See that the original line there, right? That's it. That's it. And I move it to the left, right? So this scaffolding that I showed you before is very, very important. But when you do it to create a sketch like that, make it just barely visible. Don't make it too dark. It has to disappear, right? It has to disappear. So this is not a pose, right? Quick pose like that. It's not a pose, not a dynamic pose right here. This is a man. Is Anna. Some are more detailed than other one, right? So these poses are the yoga poses we're telling you about. They don't really last a long time. So you gotta be quick, right? And in this case in here, I use blue and red, and the red I block in the shadow mesh like that, very flat, right? Just flooding all the area of the shadow mesh with a flat value. I just needed two value, light and dark. That's it, right? That's sufficient to create a sense of three-dimensionality, right? Here is another yoga pose, right? These are just lovely poses like that, right? I just love them, so I just drew them as they were, right? As a great way to practice, right? This is a more complete pose. Many of these models are so fantastic. Most of them are athlete, dancer. She's an actress, right? She's not now an actress, right? And they know how to move the body, have the good relationship with the body. So you will also want to hire models that have a good confidence in moving, right? In feeling the. So this is a further study, right? So I went a little bit more in detail. I drew the pose like that, and then little by little, I started carving out the muscle to see if I could kind of reconstruct the thing. So this is an exercise that eventually we want to do, right? Try to go from, again, I was saying before, from the front side and back views to the in-between views, right? So this is not a yoga pose, right? And then this, right? Beautiful. So many, in this case in here, what I did, I smear it with a finger, put the color pencil in there. So the color pencil that I'm using are Polychromos Faber-Castell, and I like to use a red earth, burnt red, etc., but also the blue, as I show you later, as contrast, right? Why polychromos? Because they are hard. They're colored pencil, but they are hard. Those are non-water soluble, right? And they are hard, and then permits me to do sweeping marks like this, right, flat, or get really sharp details because the pencil is a little bit hard, right? On a pose like this, see that we're blocking the main areas of value. You don't need much, right? Main area of values. Some are very faint. See, this would be an initial sketching. See that? Just that, almost like a autofocus, right? And then from here, see that this was the same, right? See, just barely visible. And then you carve out the detail there, right? Okay. So now yoga pose. Yoga pose. This is a study of curves, etc., where they occur, etc. But another pose which I really like, the way it's oriented, right? Very kind of like a path. See that from here to here to here to here. It's really beautiful, flowing, right? And then this is now instead. This drawing said I devoted two poses to it, and it started. See that line there, right? Just barely visible. That is still what that was the original line was, and it was like that. As long as you see, or that, right? See that as long as you see a little bit, right, of the line, you're okay. You don't need to make strong marks And initially, yes, when you're learning, yes, but later, just a faint line will do, because that way, those initial line, in most cases, will be incorporated with a figure, and you don't need to erase, right? So also see how the lines in here, this overlaps that, this is behind, this overlaps that, this is behind that, right? This is now cutting here. So you have this overlapping of the forms, right? See that overlaps that, overlap, that creates a more convincing sense of three-dimensional and form and volume, right? So here, etc., etc. And then I want to show you, I don't see the figure. Oh, here it is, right? So this is a petite model, right? The petite model. She was 1 to 6.5, 6.75. She was 1 to 8. So a good practice is when you start the pose, especially if it's in a standing pose like this, you want to see how many time, you want to see her proportions, right? Meaning the ratio head to body. So this is 1 to 8, meaning the head fits into the body 8 times. Lena, instead, she was more like 1 to 6.5. So we want to look at those proportions and see how, if you bring one head down, what do you have? One head down, what do you have? Typically, in the typical proportion, you bring one head down is the level of the nipples. You bring from the nipple one head down is the navel, one head down is the genital. But in here, you clearly see it's not the case, right? So in here we would have from here one head down. We have it's above the nipple, also because the breasts go a little bit lower, right? From here, the navel, we have the navel, right? But from here is not the end of the genital. Make sense? So these are going to be the variation that you will find in the various models. Some model will have the 1 to 7.5 exactly, but some model will not. In fact, most will not, right? Alina was more like 1 to 6.5. So let's see, right? So from here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah, 6.5, 6 and a little bit, right? And these are the proportion of a petite person, right? So these are the things that you might want to pay attention to when you copy the model, right? So this, right? This work in here, and then I'll leave you alone, right? This work in here, as you can see, shows how I first block in very, very weak initial marks here, like this, right? There, just barely visible. And then using the flat side of the pencil, like I showed you early on, I carved out the shadow, the volume, obtained the volumes by this, right? By blocking in the volume like this, right? So like this, right? Create a sense of volume like this, right? Sense like that, right? So here another volume like this, right? Like that, right? And this is maybe another volume here like this. Keep it flat, right? Keep it flat, right? And then this will become really volumetric really, really quickly. See that here? Like that, right? Like that. And then this is darker, right? Like that. So you have now, once you have this, now you go over it with the pencil and you carve out the figure more efficiently. Makes sense? So this is what I did here. In this case, I used the blue pencil, flat, block in the figure like that, and then over it, carve the lines with a more precise mark, right? So I hope I answered all your question that you asked me. Thank you for connecting, and I'll see you the next time. Bye-bye.